The lottery code words for the California Super Lotto drawing on Saturday, October the 15th, 2011 are passerby, battle, skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested, Joseph, itinerant, kazoo. And the two movies, the two big events that I was focused on for this particular weekend were the movie The Thing and the movie The Big Year. Um, And when I first saw the code word results that came up this weekend, I thought, well, this is just a total cipher. There's absolutely nothing happening here in terms of the words that I could say I had predicted or that were in any way like a Ouija board effect representing some part of what the movies I was focused on were about. And then I took a little more time to reflect on it, and the first thing I noticed was the fact that the word passerby was remarkably close to the spelling of the word passerine. And you probably don't know what passerine means, but passerine is a word which means of, like, or pertaining to songbirds. And in fact, passerine is not a possible lottery code word. And what does passerine have to do with any of the movies that we're focused on? Well, as you'll see in the movie trailer for Big Year, it's all about bird watchers, and so songbirds play a very significant part in the Big Year, and it's quite understandable why the field consciousness and Ouija board effect might be trying to cause the word passerine to come up, if it were possible. I recall when I was selecting the lottery code words, I actually considered passerine, but I decided it's just a little too obscure, and I decided to skip over it. It is actually in my lottery code word dictionary database, the word which comes immediately after passerby. So it raises an interesting question in my mind about whether this was a kind of Ouija board effect that is similar to what has happened in the past, where, for example, when the movie Get Into the Greek was focused upon and the code word Macedonian came up instead of Greek. And there was that time I was focused on the Scottish stand-up comedian Craig Ferguson, and the code word Northumbrian came up instead of Scottish. It sort of put me in the mind of thinking, is it possible that the word passerby came up because the word passerby was the closest possible word to the word passerine? I had a very remarkable experience early on where a combination of lottery code words came up, in which one of the code words was the word alyssum, as in the flower alyssum, and it seemed to me that the other code words that came up were connected to a young woman I had been working with, trying to predict lottery results way back in 1998 and 99, and her name was Allison, and it seemed to me that alyssum was the closest possible word to Allison, and so it was like the code word system was sort of substituting a word as close as possible to the intended word, but since the intended word was not an actual possible code word, it substituted the closest possible alternate word. So it's possible that that's why passerby came up, but there was actually something more significant to all of this, because as I considered these results further, there was something about the word skybox that seemed vaguely familiar, and I decided to go back through my dream journal entries and see if I could figure out where I had possibly dreamt about the word skybox in the past, and I came upon a journal entry on June the 9th of 2009, quite a while ago, in which I had actually dreamt about a skybox type structure, and the journal entry involved people in the skybox sort of monitoring activity on the street below them, watching passers-by, and at one point one of the passers-by is identified as possibly a criminal, and then the people in the skybox come down and get into a fight with the passerby, and so we've got skybox passerby battle sort of summing up the key elements in the dream from June 9th, 2009, and I was thinking, now wait a second, why on earth would a dream that I had 2.5 years ago have anything to do with these lottery code words I came up? I've had some long-term precognitive dreams, but usually there's some explanation for connecting why I dreamt about a particular event many years ago, and it seemed to be coming true at the present moment, and I just couldn't imagine what the connection was here. Why would I have dreamt about events 2.5 years ago that would have anything to do with the lottery code word results of October 15th, 2011? And then I suddenly realized it's Jack Black. Jack Black, one of the stars of The Big Year, was in another movie way back in June of 2009 called Year One. So we have like an entanglement of three key elements here. Jack Black, the word year, because he's now in The Big Year, and back in June of 2009 he was in Year One, and then these keywords, skybox, passerby, battle, all seeming to relate to the dream that I had back on June 9th of 2009. Still a little problematic because I actually saw the movie Year One on June 19th of 2009. So I had the dream about the skybox passerby battle about 10 days prior to actually seeing Jack Black in year one. But then I realized, and I have a pretty clear memory of this, that in the couple of weeks preceding the actual release of the movie Year One back in June of 2009, there was a very heavy media blitz, lots of television commercials promoting the movie Year One. And if you think about it, probably more people actually see the TV ads promoting a particular movie than that will actually go to see the movie itself. So in a certain sense, the TV ads generate a more intense field consciousness relating to a particular movie than all of the moviegoers who actually go to see the movie when it's finally released. There's obviously exceptions to that, such as Avatar and that, where you have millions and millions of, hundreds of millions of people going to see the movie. But generally speaking, an average TV audience can be in the range of 20 to 30 million people in the United States, whereas the average movie release weekend will have perhaps 3 to 5 million people actually going to see a new movie release. So there's like at least an order of magnitude difference in intensity between the field consciousness of the TV viewing and the movie viewing audience. So all very interesting that there should be this sort of like a hyperlink between the results on October 15th of 2011 and a dream that I had back on June 9th of 2009. Very remarkable example of how information can be transferred through hyperdimensional space-time in unusual sort of linkage like that. I had another experience like that recently relating to the death of Muammar Gaddafi, where on the day that Muammar Gaddafi was killed, there were actually 2 moderately large earthquakes in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I had recalled that when the Libyan revolution originally broke out back in February of this year, 2011, I definitely had a dream on February 24th, 2011, about Gaddafi being killed, and so I went back in my dream journal and wanted to check and see if I could find any possible lottery numbers or lottery code words associated with that dream. And what happened was I discovered in my dream journal that just before I had the dream about Gaddafi being killed, I had another dream about an earthquake, which I occasionally do have dreams about earthquakes, and many of them tend to be precognitive, but it seems somewhat improbable that I would have specifically had a dream about an earthquake on the same night that I dreamt about Gaddafi being killed, and then 9 months later, 8 or 9 months later, Gaddafi is killed on the same day that there are 2 fairly large earthquakes in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live. So another sort of example of a kind of hyperlink between one point in time and another point in time. I often like to speak about how many of my precognitive dreams seem to be exactly 6 months or 12 months between the prediction and the actual event. But then there are other instances where the precognitive dreams are not so nice and orderly in the relationship between the dream and the actual event coming true. So it is interesting to speculate on how these linkages occur, and clearly field consciousness has something to do with it, because of course the death of Gaddafi was a huge field consciousness. The earthquakes were relatively large field consciousness. There's another funny bit about relating to the earthquakes that occurred on October 20th, because earlier on that day, October 20th, 2011, there was a special event called the Shakeup, the Great Shakeup or the Big Shakeup, where they had 8.5 million Californians participating in a mock earthquake drill to test their preparedness for an actual earthquake, and many of the participants were school children. And I've often noticed that kids who tend to have much more vivid imaginations than adults seem to have a special potentiality for sort of mind over matter effects. And so you have 8.5 million people, mostly kids, focusing on the idea of an earthquake occurring, and then a few hours later you have the first of 2 earthquakes on the same day in the San Francisco Bay Area. I would say that's pretty clearly an example of mind over matter effect, a field consciousness event focusing on a particular concept and affecting that concept to become a reality. What worries me, and I've mentioned this before, is that you have so many people naively believing that the world will come to an end on December 21st, 2012, because the Mayan calendar supposedly predicts that it will come to an end. And the problem with that is that, of course, the Mayan calendar prediction business is a priori false, baseless, but because so many people believe that it might be true, I'm concerned that on that day there will be some horrific event occurring as a consequence of the collective mind focusing on the idea that the world's going to come to an end. So it will in effect project all kinds of negative energy into the world, not because the Mayan calendar was truly correct in predicting the end of the world, but because so many people believed that it was truly correct in predicting this catastrophe. It's a causality issue where we're a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy effect. So all I can say is, don't believe that the world's going to come to an end on December 21st, 2012, because it's not going to come to an end, and all you're going to do is cause some unintended catastrophe to occur by believing that it is going to come to an end. So knock it off. We all know how the world's going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end when the sun becomes a red giant a few billion years from now, and the Earth gets fried that's how the world will come to an end. So anything prior to that is entirely a consequence of human folly. Yeah, of course, we could get hit by another comet or asteroid, and that would be bad news. But for the most part, all the ways that the world could come to an end prior to the sun becoming a red giant are pretty much in human hands, like global warming and nuclear war and overpopulation. All these things are the way the world could come to an end that are within human control. And so those are the ways that you need to focus your energies on preventing the world coming to an end. Well, I've gotten off on a tangent here, but anyway, as for the other code words, it occurs to me that the word barrel-chested might perhaps be referring to Jack Black, who is definitely barrel-chested, but then it just might be a random coincidence. You never know with these things. After all, why did the other words that don't seem to have anything to do with the big events at all, such as Joseph, itinerant, inestimable, and kazoo, why did they come up? Just because some of the words seem to in some way be connected to something or other, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all truly causal results, and of course a skeptic would argue that it proves that none of them are truly causal results, but I think that's going a bit too far. Anyway, let's just go ahead and entangle the lottery code words with the movie trailers for this week. Passerby,
we found something
battle,
quite remarkable.
skybox,
There's a structure,
inestimable,
and a specimen.
barrel-chested,
Writing down.
itinerant,
This is Kate Lloyd, Columbia Paleontology. Let me show you why you flew 10,000
passerby,
miles.
battle, skybox,
Estimated it's been here 1.5
inestimable,
years.
barrel-chested,
Take a picture of something.
Do you really think that's a good idea?
Yes, I do.
itinerant,
Human
kazoo,
friends will all be immortalized as the people who made this
passerby,
discovery.
battle, skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested,
Janet.
Joseph, itinerant, kazoo, passerby, battle, skybox, inestimable,
My God.
barrel-chested,
Somebody was attacked.
Joseph.
Seems everyone is fine.
itinerant,
Maybe someone miraculously
kazoo,
saved themselves. There's someone
passerby,
who's not there.
battle, skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested,
Who's it coming
Joseph,
It's imitating
itinerant, kazoo,
I think this thing copies its prey.
passerby,
and then hides inside it.
battle,
What do you think? None of us are
skybox,
human.
inestimable,
Beginning of us.
barrel-chested, Joseph, itinerant, kazoo,
We can let this
passerby,
thing be. If it makes it
battle,
in here, millions of people die.
skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested, Joseph, itinerant, kazoo, passerby, battle, skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested, Joseph, itinerant, kazoo, passerby, battle, skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested, Joseph.
Hi, I'm Steve Martin, and I love
Itinerant.
working with my two co-stars in our new
Kazoo.
movie, The Big Year. The incredibly talented Mr.
Passerby.
Jack Black.
Battle.
And, of course, the very funny Mr.
Skybox.
Luke Wilson.
Inestimable.
Sorry, Luke Owen, everybody.
Barrel-chested.
Big fan, love it.
Joseph, itinerant, kazoo, passerby,
There's going to
battle,
be major fallout in a few hours. Nuclear fallout.
skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested,
Bird fallout.
Joseph,
Have you ever wondered what
killed your marriage to
Steph in 03?
kazoo,
First of all, I was married to Bridget in 03. January 1st, I'm
Passerby.
out of here.
You
battle,
realize the phase after retirement looks a little
Skybox.
bit like this?
inestimable,
Great work. Dad?
barrel-chested,
Great talking to you.
Joseph, itinerant,
I just want to do something big,
kazoo,
We need a little adventure.
I'm doing a big year.
The year to do all the
Passerby.
things we never could.
battle,
Now,
skybox,
Race to the bottom.
They're turning their
inestimable,
quest
They're men, dear. They never stop
Barrel-chested.
competing, they die.
into the ultimate
Joseph.
competition.
This is my
itinerant,
year. I'm going to take my mark.
kazoo, passerby,
There's not another one for
battle, skybox, inestimable,
From the director of The Devil Wears
Barrel-chested.
Prada and Marley and Me.
Joseph,
One of us has to beat
itinerant, kazoo,
When it comes to comedy,
Did you just do a victory
passerby,
dance?
No.
battle,
Maybe. Yes, I did.
go
skybox,
big or go home.
inestimable,
drinks and got what you wanted.
barrel-chested,
You don't want to know.
Steve
Joseph,
Martin, Jack Black, Owen Wilson.
itinerant,
Most people wake up one day and
Kazoo.
realize they didn't do everything they wanted to do.
Am I nuts, Edith?
passerby,
a therapist or as
battle,
Which one is cheaper?
This is incredible,
skybox,
isn't it? Unless there's a freak blizzard.
inestimable,
I shouldn't have said there's going to be a
barrel-chested.
freak blizzard. I jinxed it.
The
Joseph,
Big Year.
itinerant, kazoo, passerby, battle, skybox, inestimable, barrel-chested, Joseph, itinerant, kazoo. You might notice that I didn't really have anything to say about the movie The Thing. It was a fun movie, kind of a prequel to the John Carpenter version of The Thing back in 1982. It's actually funny, when I originally saw the John Carpenter version back in 1982, the thought had occurred to me, oh, you know, it would be cool if they made another movie about what happened to the Norwegian scientists who originally discovered the buried flying saucer, and how they met their end. Of course, at the time I thought, well, they'll never do that. If they do any kind of a sequel, it'll be a follow-up to what happens to Kurt Russell and his group after the John Carpenter version ends. But somebody apparently got the same bright idea. It took 30 years, but yeah, they managed to come up with the same idea that I had thought of, a prequel that tells what happens to the Norwegian scientists. But the thing is that even though it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the code words that came up, there is a significant little linkage between these two movies, because Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is the star of The Thing, was in another movie with Michael Cera called Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I believe, was the full title. And what does that have to do with anything? Nothing directly, but then Michael Cera was also in the movie Year One with Jack Black. So there's sort of an implicit chain of connection between Jack Black, Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and therefore a linkage between The Thing and The Big Year. How much did that play in why Something I Dreamt About back in 2009 seems to have been fulfilled in October of 2011? I don't know.